Okay, so now what we can do is we'll have to look for the aiming down the sights function or the event, and then we will have to create a variable, a boolean flag and all that, and then take that over to our HUD widget and bind the visibility of the crosshair to that particular variable. Okay, so just follow along. So I go over to the player and I look for let's say aiming down the sights. So this is what it is. So it's got pressed and released. It's got two events here, I mean sub events, two states, pressed and released. So pressed, it does this, and released, it does this. So if one thing we'll have to do is we'll have to create a new boolean variable. So you have is firing, is reloading, and I'll right click and I'll say duplicate, and I'll say is aiming. Okay, so which means that it's aiming through the sights. Now I'll just drag and set it up. I'll set up this variable at the end of both of these. So when it's pressed, which means that it's activated, I want the aiming to be set on, and when it's released, you guessed it, I want to reset it to false. Okay, so now when you compile that, nothing is going to happen because we haven't bound this variable to our HUD crosshair out here. So now this is subject, the visibility of this crosshair is subject to the state of this particular boolean flag. So let's look for the visibility, and you have this bind button here. So let's click on this button and say create binding, and that's going to do that. All right, and great. Okay, so now that we are here, you're going to need a copy of this return node because there'll be two conditions. One, whether it needs to be off, or one, whether it needs to be on. So the first thing is I'll first compile this, and I'll go to the event graph and look for event construct. Okay, and on event construct, I will be creating a variable so that I can hold the player character. So I'll say player character, right? And this will be of type, let's say player. There it is, and that is player, and this will be an object reference. Compile that. Now inside event construct, I'll say get player character, or I'll say get player character here, get player character, and from here I'll say cast to player. Okay, and connect this, move one up, and as player, no, I'll get this and I'll say set the player character, and once I connect this, I'll connect this with this so that the player character has been saved. So we stashed the player character away. I'll also get rid of this little bubble. The reason we are doing this is because we don't want to cast the player every single time we are looking for the crosshair visibility. Okay, so once we have that, all we have to check is whether it's valid or not. So I'll just say get this, and I'll say is valid. Okay, so there is a function here which says return true if the object is usable, and then there is also a node which has multiple things that you can do, whether it's valid and whether it's not valid. So you can choose either. I think I'll go for the simple function, so it's valid, not the exec node. If it's valid, okay, then I want to run this. Then I want to run if it's valid, and let's see, I want to bring in a branch here first. Branch, right? And I'll just connect these two, I guess. And this will be a Boolean condition, a logic statement. And if it is valid and Boolean, if it is valid, okay, this will be the result. If it is valid and player character is aiming, get is aiming is true. Okay, if this is true, if both of these are true, then do something, and if both of these are false, or some if is aiming is false, then do something else. Okay, so when it's true, I want this to be, so when the object is, when the player character object is valid and it is aiming, then I want this to be hidden, right? I don't want the crosshair to be shown when it's aiming. And when it's not aiming, then it should be visible. So it's very simple and quite straightforward. I'll just rearrange them in a better way so that it's more readable. And I think I'll just bring this down here and like this. Okay, one. Okay, so you have the player character, and it's an and Boolean out here is a better choice, because even if one of these fail, I should not be able to go through, because if the player character is not valid at all, which means that we could not really cast it to the player character. So in which case, I should be keeping it visible, or I don't know. It should just not work. Okay, so you can know that. So anyways, when I hit compile it, and when I compile the blueprint, I save it, and when I hit play now, so now I'm able to see the crosshair. When I shoot some and then I right click, and you can see that the crosshair is gone. I bring it back, the crosshair is back on, back on, back on. So it works. So you can also see there's one more issue. The muzzle of the gun and the crosshair have no relation with each other. Muzzle of the gun is in the right and the crosshair is in the left, and when I'm firing, it's not really firing through the crosshair, so it's actually of little to no help. But at least we got this crosshair out there and it works fine for us. Okay, so that's all that matters. Anyways, so this was about just bringing in the crosshair into the game, and in a future video we will actually perfectly align it with the muzzle, so that you can actually fight the crosshair and it's actually of some use to us. But for now, at least this thing works, and we also put up the conditions for the visibility of the crosshair itself. So that's about it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.